Hey, welcome to Left, Right, Out again. It's been a few days. I've been watching the markets a lot. I don't know if you call it a bull or bear market rally or not. It's been going on for a month, so I think it's past the point of that. I call it irrational exuberance. But today, Friday, it finally kind of snapped, and these aren't even that significant in my opinion at these levels. When you have a 300, it's 292, whatever, close to 300 point drop in the Dow. That's really nothing. I mean, if you look at it, it's not even 1%. Excuse me. And then in the S&P, like what, a 55 point drop, it's at 40. Those are down days, but they're not significant. Now, is that the snap? It could be, and you continued selling pressure or whatnot. I mean, you look at the VIX, it's kind of pushed up a little bit. You look at some of these other indicators. You look at some of the other sentiment among investors. You look at the Goldman Sachs stuff that they came out, and they were one of the ones that came out when this rally started and saying they're just getting all these inflows, buy orders, billions and billions of dollars, and it's going throughout the week. And now they've reversed tone and said now they're seeing a lot of these funds come in and ready to reapply short positions. So we'll see what happens there. The one issue that, like I've been saying, is talking about the 10-year yield. Of course, that the curve inversion. But we look at what happened today in the 10-year, and it the last 2 days, I think. Yesterday I had something else going on. I just took a melatonin, so I'm kind of racing against time before I have to go to sleep. But it's like almost at 3%. It's at 297. Just the other day, it was at 277. I mean, this is like I keep saying this, unprecedented moves in the yield, relatively speaking. And I don't know what to tell you. I said that the volatility in yield in some of these treasuries is historically very significant. And I don't, there's a significant player in there. The central banks are sovereign wealth funds and all these other countries with huge dollar reserves, which there's less and less of them, or less and less significant players. But where are they? What are they doing? Are they backstopping a lot of this and protecting what's going on? Because this seems kind of weird to me. Seems weird that we had such an inversion for this long. It seems weird that the 10 years bouncing around all the way from 3.25 to 2.5 in like a month's time. It seems weird that it's at where it's at when the Fed is almost guaranteed to continue raising rates, at least probably 50 basis points in this next. I'm going to put my thumb there real quick. At least 50 basis points, which would bring it back up well over 3%. I think it'd be between 3.25 and 3.5. I mean, so where these things are, I understand there's a time dimension there, and they're anticipating relief, but at current discounting, everything forward here, it's kind of hard to see that. In my opinion, just anecdotally when I look at it, and you almost see that reflected in the 2-year when you see that. I don't know what it is today, but it was at like 3.2 something last time I checked. And when you raise up 50 basis points, you're right there. And those risks, to me, it's like, okay, well, the Fed funds rate is pretty much like an instantaneous. It's like a today number, overnight lending rate between these banks. So it's like essentially when you're flat with the 2-year, you're trying to wonder what the time premium is or the risk premium on these things, and it seems like pretty convoluted. But let's go on. The Fed balance sheet popped up again. I'm going to check it today. It popped up from last week. We'll see what it is today coming in, because they usually pop that stuff up on Fridays. But it popped up a little bit. We have pretty much we're at the same level we were like 6 months ago. And we're supposedly started QT 3 months ago, roughly. So essentially, we've snail crawled our way to almost essentially doing nothing. And yet somehow the Fed's in control and people have confidence in them. I don't know. I don't understand it. It's a huge game, and they tell us one thing and they're doing another. Pretty much, well, I'll call the Fed part of the government, but pretty much anything they say. Anything on paper they say, it does the exact opposite. The Inflation Reduction Act, which, whatever, how do you inflate and reduce inflation? I don't understand how you spend, because you're essentially going to be printing this money out of nowhere. Because I don't know who's in these markets anymore on the debt side. Who's buying this stuff without Fed backstopping, or other central banks for that matter, or large institutions? But somebody is, or somebody's going to have to. So you're inflating there. You're hindering any kind of productivity. I don't know how that's supposed to be an inflation reduction policy. I was going to pull up some articles here. There was an interesting thing I was listening to the other day, and I've talked about this before, is the decoupling of the U.S. dollar as reserve currency. And someone was bringing up these points I brought up in the past. I'll just bring them up again, talking about how, because it was the anniversary of when Nixon took us to close the gold window, when France was trying to get, the gold that they had over here. So they, sent us ships over here to go get it with whatever dollars they had. Anyway, in order to maintain some kind of dollar hegemony or whatnot, that I believe it was Kissinger or somebody like some deep state type actor struck a deal with the Saudi Arabians that we'd kind of have some kind of military alliance with them, and they would that OPEC would denominate oil in dollars, thus creating the pseudo petrodollar. Well, I wouldn't say that. That's pretty much that makes the dollar what it is, and that's the huge backstop on it. So what's happened over the last year or so, Saudi Arabia has pretty much been pushed in a sense, or coaxed into a cozier relationship with countries such as Russia, and in fact willing to denominate certain aspects of the oil market in various currencies besides the dollar. That is pretty much another nail in a coffin for the reserve currency status of the dollar. When you have the chief, player in OPEC who in a sense is like a key holder to the dollar reserve status in itself, cozying up to our supposed enemy, which I don't know, it's whatever enemy that is, Russia. I'm just saying, I'm not saying they're good, but I'm not saying that they're these horrible people that we've been led to believe. But anyway, regardless of that fact, the point is these relationships are being tied together, and there was alliances made. They brought up, I couldn't even remember this one. There was actually a military alliance, I believe, that was signed by Russia and Saudi Arabia, further pushing that narrative of de-dollarization of the world. Not to say that you won't have dollar-denominated oil in the near future. You still will, but a larger portion of the market's now going to be taken up by ruble, maybe some kind of yuan. I don't know, a gold-backed type ruble thing. There's some things floated out. I mean, can't remember off the top of my head what the predominant viewpoint of that was going to be, or what even an agreement was. So I mean, you can look it up. All I know is that there is an agreement. There's also a Russia, I believe, Nigeria agreement. They're a huge oil producer. So a lot of this oil market that is backing the dollar is now being, I would argue, in either its utter incompetence or purposely almost engineered, pushed into the Russian sphere of influence, or even in that regard, since we've pushed Russia and China together, a Chinese sphere of influence. There's also something else that's pretty interesting that's been brought up that I keep forgetting about, but we don't get to talk about it over here in the West. It's one of the most powerful initiatives that the world has ever undertaken. It's the Belt, I believe it's what is it? I just lost it. I had it in my mind, but it's the Chinese Belt and Road Agreement, or what? I mean, most of you probably know what it is. Just jog your memory. It's basically the trade, it's the old Silk Road. The Chinese have been pumping in billions of dollars to establish this trade route, pretty much linking Asia, Africa, and Europe, which would link them almost a significant amount of the world's population in a major trade route. And China's kind of spearheading this thing. The Belt Road Initiative, I believe that's what it's called. But anyway, that thing is going to be you think about all the things that the Chinese are doing. And granted, there's a lot of Western backers, a lot of Western money, but you think about all these big moves of investment, and you think about what the West used to be. So you could see them coming up, and you could see us dwindling. And I don't know how these people, I guess they're so blinded by this scrapping for whatever power is left that they don't even see this. But anyway, you're seeing all this being pushed, and it's this either well-orchestrated move to destroy the dollar, or just utter incompetence by leaders. I mean, I don't know whether it matters what if it's either or. We just can see the ramifications of what's going on. I argue that there are some people that actually know what the hell's going on here, and then there's others that are just operating off of sheer incompetence and the idea of kind of like an in-crowd group thing. But anyway, it was interesting to hear some people bring that back up because it is playing a significant role. And when we get into this next crisis, when the Fed comes back in, it could very well be the snapping point for the dollar itself. And when that happens, there's a huge adjustment. We've already seen an adjustment over the years of purchasing power or living standards, and we're told everything's fine, but you know it's not fine when you look at from a broader perspective. When you go from one bread earner to raise a whole family, to two, to now you need that. Now you have daycare. Now you need not only two people working, but you need one person not only working one job, but he's got to work two jobs. You got, and even when you're doing that, you're still in massive amounts of debt. You still have to go in massive amounts of debt to get a house, get a car, do a number of different things. Now we're to the point where you're renting everything almost. You're on subscription fees. Nobody can afford cable. And I know that, call that a trend of some kind of societal thing. I could see this back in the day that this is more of a trend of people trying to save money. Talking about cable bills, $70, $80, $100. It's like, well, the perception is if you just get the internet and you stream, at least you could just keep the internet and maybe you cut a streaming service here, and when you can afford it, you put it back on. I see it all the time in an attempt to save money, but even that now is becoming expensive, and now people are watching and leaving. And there's an article about that talking about how streaming services are trying to tackle that group of people that are watching just various shows and then leaving because I'd argue because they probably can't afford whatever, even $7 a month on a monthly basis, to stream. When you couple that, like I just got an electric bill that I try to turn things off besides when I'm doing this and keep the temperature. I raise the temperature so the thing's not working. I mean, I sweat my butt off during the day, and somehow my electrical bill is the highest I've ever seen it. So I just imagine what some of these other people are going through. They run their air conditioner all the time. Basically, purchasing power is being diminished across the board. It has been for decades. I'm going down a whole nother rabbit hole. But anyway, so when this happens, to tie it back in, it's going to be a calamitous event for a lot of Americans because that dollar no longer can go be exported or grab these imports to the extent that it can as of now. Not that it won't have some sort of prominence. We still have a huge military, even though that's being eroded as we speak. Whether it be woke policies, I believe that it's just part of societal degradation. But we still have a huge, powerful military. We still have I'd call a taxpayer base that we're funding all this stuff. We still have a central bank that likes to print money. So, I mean, yeah, well, they just impoverish most of us, but there'll still be some, relevance for the dollar in the market. But a lot of us are going to be impoverished. There's going to be the ability to ever buy a home, maybe even ever buy a car, to a certain extent. To ever outright own something is that's a dream of the past almost for a lot of us. And that goes to another point, the last thing, and I'll end it. The housing market is cracking. It's cracking in a big way. When you talk about sentiment, when you talk about builder sentiment, when they're talking about how people are stopping projects because of what is going on in the mortgage market. You talk about, we haven't even hit, these are the first cracks, and I've talked about it for months now, the cracks when you have certain parts of the country, prices are stagnating. Deals are being pulled out of. Mortgage companies are laying off people. That goes along the lines of all these other companies that have also, even though the market's going up, all these other companies are warned. Bam, and a lot of them are going to be starting to lay off some workers. The warning signs are all over. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there because right now I'm getting a little drowsy. I'm probably going to go crash out. So talk to you later. Peace.